something that it has to happen, guys, or we're going to lose our country. We're well on the road to losing our country. The the Irish people are asleep, and they need people to stand up. They need to see that many of us are standing up. They need to see us standing together. They need to stop all this bickering that goes on Facebook and Twitter and all those places. It's dividing people, and there's people sent to divide us on social media. They're sent to stir pain between us. They know the buttons to push. They study your accounts. I don't know if you're familiar with that company what was it, Cambridge Analytica. It goes much deeper than Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica were amateurs compared to what's out there today. They have, what they've done, they've retired military people still retain their clearance for looking at top secret information. And they form companies, and then they offer services to various politicians and regimes around the world. And they can actually manipulate whole populations, whole voting blocks with this secret information that they have on individual people. They can blackmail people. There's people in show business tend towards excess, maybe drug use, which we know is very common, as a TD told us recently, inside that building over there. Apparently it's alive with cocaine. We see it in politics. They've all got skeletons in their closets. And they get access to this Facebook, and they get access, if they have access to Facebook, they have access to everything on your phone. Everything. They're in your memory, they're in your photos, they're in your microphone, everything. All of those apps, they all get access to everything live. They can just tune into your pocket and listen to what you're doing. So you can imagine what they get on these people who are prone to excess. And they use that information then to manipulate them and to force them into positions, to holding positions that support the regime or support whatever ideology they want to implement. And it isn't the ideology of the Irish government. It's the ideology of foreign international actors like the UN, like the EU. So our politicians, they aren't working for the Irish people. They're not even working for themselves. I'd like to think they were even just greedy and working for themselves. They're not. They're working for foreign international actors, and that is treason. If you conspire with a foreign enemy, a foreign entity to influence our country, that's treason. There's no way about it. And they're being manipulated into it because of the lifestyles they chose of excess and exuberance. And now they're trapped. So they're not even, it's not even the good wages that they're paid in those buildings, it's that they're trapped by blackmail. And they're trapped by blackmail by foreign entities that want to change our world into this globalist mishmash that they can control easily. I heard someone call it recently the revolution of the rich. So the 1% is having their revolution, where they're going to take control of the 99%, as if they didn't have enough control already. But the 1% really want control of every aspect of your life. You can't be a threat to them. The information you have in your head is the threat. Speaking up, speaking back to them, telling people what's really going on, that makes you the threat. So you have to realize that we're facing a international concerted effort. It's been planned and dissected, and it's going on for years and years. You've been coached into it. Even Facebook itself is a coach for accepting groupthink. Same with Twitter. They like responses, all that. It coaches people's minds into accepting groupthink and to trying to conform to things other than the law. So we're all required to conform to the law. But there's new morality coming into it now, fake morality, where groups of people can impose, they can get you fired from your job. And that's the equivalent of what happened to the kulaks that Mr. Solzhenitsyn was talking about. So what Stalin done was he starved the kulaks out of it. He enforced a famine on them. And that's what communists do. So when they're doing this cancel culture, what they're actually doing is they're forcing famine on the person that they're cancelling. They remove their source of income, they take them from their job, their children can't afford the things that they're used to, they can't pay their mortgage, and they end up on the street. So that's famine. They remove the life support of the family when they cancel the earnings of the breadwinner. So it's the exact same tactic that Stalin used. And they do this all the time. They talk about new communism and new socialism, and it was just some kind of tyrant that took over socialism, and that's why it didn't work. Well, that's not what happened. What happened is, to believe in socialism, you have to have a certain kind of brain. And that kind of brain is very easily manipulated by psychopaths. And that's why psychopaths take over in communism, is because the brains that believe in communism are easily manipulated. It's a ready-made ideology, and you just plonk it down on top of a weak mind that doesn't want to think, that doesn't want to face the harshness of life, that doesn't want to face the evil that's actually in people. And you're not a good person unless you face the evil that's in you. This is Jordan Peterson that said this. He said, you have to be capable. If you're just a bunny rabbit, if you're just a weak person going through life not doing harm, that's not a good person. A good person is a person who faces the badness that's in them. A good person who's aware of the evil that they are capable of, and they're still good. They still retain what it means to be a human. But just faffing around all the time with your friends going, oh, look at their groupthink. That's not goodness. If you're not capable of evil, if you don't have the capacity to do wrong, then you're not good. You're just a follower. I can't think like that. I'm not a follower, I never was. So it just doesn't. And this is another side of it. We don't understand these people. We think they're all crazy. They're not crazy. What they are is they're stuck in a special frame of mind. And it's a weak frame of mind. So we can't appreciate it. We don't know what it means to be like this. So they appear to be crazy. But actually what's going on is that they've been trapped into an emotional state. There's a part of their brain that's dedicated to emotional response. It's called the amygdala. And then there's a frontal lobe of the brain that we all use to think deeply and philosophize and discuss. So what they've done to these people, over years of using Facebook, of years of emotional stimulation, they get them to use their amygdala. And that's why this COVID is so effective with these people. They have years of training of emotional thought, which it completely invalidates any discussion. Once the emotion comes into discussion or debate, it's gone. So they have these people already trained to be emotional and use their amygdala, their small brain it's called, and then they put a real threat in front of them, or a somewhat real threat in front of them, the COVID virus. And they're frightened beyond belief, and they cannot think rationally. They first of all don't have the skills to think rationally because they've been thinking emotionally for so long. And now when they face something they perceive as an actual threat, they just lose all control, So that's where we're at. And that's why these people, you see them when they pass us here, they're screaming obscenities at us. Some of them, curse words. No argument, no discussion. There's venom on their faces when they're talking to us. And it's because they're caught in their amygdala. And they're not thinking with their full brain. So that's where we are now. We're in a world where people are thinking with their small brain, and they think they're better than the people who are thinking with their big brain. We're the big brain people. We're the people that want the discussion. We're the people that want the debate. And they cannot do it. They can't, because you can't debate with your small brain. It just doesn't work. All that comes out is either your fight or flight response. So when you give evidence to these people, and they refuse to listen to it, that's flight. That's them running away from the information. That's the amygdala right there. That's amygdalic thought, is fight or flight. So then the other option is, the other reaction you get is that vicious look, this evilness that comes out of them, this nastiness. That's the fight response from the amygdala. And it's becoming not because of a real threat, it's coming to you because you threaten their worldview. So it's not that you're threatening them with a knife or you're threatening them with a gun. Now what they think is a real threat is the amygdala, is the information that you have that threatens their worldview, and this causes them to react with the fight or flight response. So that's what we're dealing with. We call it cognitive dissonance, where somebody sees information that contradicts their worldview and they blank it out. Well, that's the amygdala, and that's what these people have been doing here in RTE and media all over the world. They've been stroking emotion to trap people in amygdalic thought. And that's the only way to get them into hysteria. And that's here we are. We're in a hysteria. The whole country is in a hysteria. The poor elderly people are terrified in their homes, terrified in their care institutes, terrified in their villages, terrified of each other. They're afraid of each other, not just the information. This threat that they face, they're actually afraid of each other. So this is deadly, lads. This is where it all starts to unravel. And we have to get off Facebook, get off Twitter, get off social media, go to local cafes, go wherever you can, and just talk to people. Don't try and convince them. Just show them evidence. Like Leo Varadkar came out and said, roughly 60% of the deaths are over-recorded. They misrecorded 60% of the deaths. That puts the actual deaths somewhere about 800 over 6 months. Sure, that's not very few deaths, really, you know. And God bless those people. I'm very sorry to hear it, you know. But as we see from America, those deaths are probably not due to COVID at all, or a very low proportion of them are due to COVID. So you have to get people. There's some defining information out there that will wake people up. Or it's even just to get them to start to ask questions, so that they go home and they start looking for information, even to contradict you, and they can't help but find the real information then, you know. So we have to get off Facebook and Twitter and all that. I think the last election proves we've all worked for years. A lot of us have. Many of us have. Many thousands of Irish people have been working for years now to wake the Irish people up to what's going on. And we put a lot of work into Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and all that. And yet we only got 1% of the vote in the election. If that doesn't prove that stuff doesn't work, I don't know what does. Okay, so I realize it's a battlefield and it's an easy access battlefield, but the real battle is on the street. The real battle is in your families. The real battle is with your friends and your neighbours. And go to your neighbours. Go over to their house and say, look at this tweet from the director. You know, and RTE are still, they're still using the wrong number, and they know they're using the wrong number. You know, I think he was Taoiseach at the time when he said it, or at least acting Taoiseach, you know. So don't try and force people to understand you though. Show them the evidence and keep showing them the evidence. Don't argue with them, because you'll lose access to them then. But just keep showing the evidence and trust that if you keep showing the evidence, then eventually they will arrive at the right conclusion. That's all you can do. But do it often, do it regularly, and do it in the real world. Okay, I think I've